I'm Andrew Nesky, and this is Science and the Outer Streams. As our science penetrates ever more deeply into what we are and what we see, it has found beneath us a subatomic substance that doesn't follow the patterns we take for granted. A world where distance is arbitrary and effect can actually precede cause. Yet in some fundamental way, this realm cooperates with the cause and effect world. How does this cooperation work, and how can we interact with it? For some, this question is completely answered by our phenomena of music, a form that is, at its heart, a metaphysics based on the cooperation between what we know and what we don't know. Today, we will journey to this place between with one of the most qualified guides in the world. Dr. Nelson Harrison holds a PhD in clinical psychology, has traveled as a trombone player with the Count Basie Orchestra, and has won awards for music composition and poetry. Although an accomplished jazz composer and musician, he has found time to teach music and psychology on the primary, collegiate, and corporate levels. Such a man, equipped with an additional Bachelor of Science degree in Zoology, is uniquely qualified to comment on what it is that soothes the savage beast. Dr. Harrison, thank you so much. Thank you for coming.
Andy, great to be here. Great to see you.
You're a good friend of mine. Dr. Harrison, before we get into the study of music, the discussion about the music and the metaphysics of music, you are an awfully eclectic fella.
Well, I've been called a Renaissance man by George Anderson of the Post-Gazette. I've been called some other names that I won't mention. But I'm curious, and I'm a walking question mark. And if today I find out something I never heard of before, watch out, because tomorrow I'm going to know something about it, because I'm just that way. And that's why I love the internet. I mean, I come home from a jazz job or a gig, and I'm on the net till 4 or 5 in the morning. You know? But that's easy to do, because after playing a jazz job, you have a rush anyway. You're not ready to go to sleep. So I use it that way, and it's fascinating to me. I've never played a video game in my life. You know, I ask a lot.
We have been blessed with a lot of really great people that have come through this show, and a lot of them have done some really amazing stuff. And what is it that you think? I mean, is it just this burning desire? Do you have a burning question? Maybe is that what it is?
Oh yeah, it's just like there's so much to life and there's so much to know, and we live in an age where knowledge is just exploding exponentially, and it's an exciting time to be alive. I mean, we're living in an age where the actual human lifespan is expanding. I mean, imagine that. Diseases are disappearing. They're making breakthroughs in nutrition, and I try to keep up with all of it. I mean, you bring up any of those subjects and we can go for hours.
Oh, I'm certain we can. We've done things like that before, as a matter of fact. So what we hope to talk about here today is we want to talk about music. Music is a kind of a focal point or a synthesis or a language for what it is that we do as human beings.
Well, let's first start with talking about music as a language.
Okay.
Because I think we in the West have failed to understand that music is a language. It's spoken directly. It doesn't need a translator between people who understand the language of music. If we go back to verbal languages and we look at certain cultures, like the African cultures, their verbal language was musical. It was tonal. So they literally sing their language. That's why the drum can talk, because if you hear the drum play a piece of poetry and you hear the poet speak it, it sounds exactly the same. So it's a mystery to us in the West who don't appreciate or perceive tone in the same way. We sort of ignore tonalities pretty much. We're more visual in the Western world. And today, the way you can manipulate visual images is kind of dangerous, because seeing is no longer believing. But we used to think that. Hearing, though, is something that we have difficulty with. So we make sounds irresponsibly in the Western world, and those sounds do have effects on our environment, including the physical environment, but also including the flora and the fauna in the physical environment. We know plants respond to sound, animals do, and certainly human beings do, but we don't integrate that into our use of sound and our production of music.
It's an interesting word you just said, irresponsible sound. What would responsible sound be?
Well, the way I put it when I'm mentoring people into the tradition of making your own and composing your own music, I tell them that music is mostly silence. And if you don't appreciate the fact that it's mostly silence, when you make a sound, you're interrupting the silence. Don't interrupt it unless you're going to do it with something meaningful or beautiful. Otherwise, leave it alone. But we have a sense that the notes are the music, and we ignore the value of the silence, which is the womb within which all of it takes place. And we have a tendency to do that in our lives in general. We tend to focus on objects, and we tend to ignore what we're looking through.
What's the penalty for this irresponsibility?
Well, we have kids killing each other today at age 5 and 6. Didn't happen before. We have diseases and conditions of mind that are occurring because of the noise that we produce, and we're not even aware that we're stimulating this. We think it's okay. We can just do anything with sound. We can say anything. We can make any kind of noise, and it's okay, but it's not okay.
I think all of us have been through the sensation of being around a noise or even music, or something that's called music, that's grating on us, that takes us to a place where we're on edge. And of course, when we're on edge, we're spreading that around, right?
Yeah, but it took science, modern science, and modern quantum physics, and modern physiology to catch up with what the ancients knew. The ancients, you go back to Paracelsus and Pythagoras, and you go back to Aristotle and Plato, and you go back to ancient Egypt, they knew about it. In fact, they knew so much about sound that it's been reputed in legend that the stones of Stonehenge were lifted by sound, that the stones of the pyramid were lifted by sound. And this is demonstrable today. We can't do it at that scale, but there was a special on public television I saw, narrated by Charlton Heston, where they used a sound wave generator that produced a sine wave, and there was another one that produced an opposite sine wave, so that you had figure eights, and they had these little pebbles, and they suspended 5 pebbles in midair with the sound waves.